How's it going, everybody? I'm Drifty from Driftwood Gaming. Thank you so much for joining me. Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, the 2018 version, where we use the RPG Maker in the engine to create a sim RPG game. This is called Natural Explorers, and we are on episode number 6. I did a couple of small things off camera, not too much. Let's take a look at it real quick. I copy-pasted the town payment animation, and I just took out all of the target flash because they're not being used, and the sound effect, because we're calling this sound effect with the Gab window plugin. But what was happening, it was playing this and then playing the sound effect again on the Gab window. I've eliminated that from happening by replacing the animation that's playing inside the common events for the starting town timer from the town payment to the town payment with no sound, because it's still showing it in the Gab window. I've changed my currency to a C Sevilla alt code instead of coins or gold. If you hold down alt and you press numbers, you can get different symbols. That's kind of cool. They're called alt codes. I will put a link in the description or a quick guide. I'm using this or this symbol. Updated the SV attack motion. I copy pasted the edmund1.png, renamed the copy by putting a space, opening up brackets, and selecting 32x48. And the reason why I did this is I added a plugin, Genfly's Scale Sprite plugin. It's a very simple to use plugin. You put it in your JS plugins folder, add it to your plugin manager, and then rename your sprites, and it changes the size of the sprites. All I did was change the perspective of this sprite from a 48 by 48 into a 32 by 48. It makes it look a little bit less chibi. This is an experiment. I've also cut that sprite size in half. I'll show you what that looks like. If I copy this and paste it here and rename it to 16 by 24 and get rid of the copy, go into my characters, go into my actors, select character and select a different file size. Because of the plugin, which is plug and play, it will change the sprite size. When you scale sprites down, they still look good. When you scale them up, they do look a little pixelated. Something that I've noticed is when you walk inside the forest, when you have a smaller sprite or a changed sprite, it doesn't have the half invisible version of that sprite. It just disappears. So if you go in the forests with a scaled sprite, your sprite will disappear. That's fine. I kind of like this look. If we're going to do most of the game on the world map, we have a smaller sprite. I think I'm going to leave it like this for now, and we'll change it later if I feel like it needs to be changed. I was testing some things with the message core, so I had turned it off, but I'll turn these back on now. Another thing I notice is when it's showing gold, if I don't have a mine or something creating another Gab, the show Gab will not repeat itself twice, so it won't show you gained 100 coins, you gained 100 coins more than one time. So for that reason, I'm going to change the show Gab to force Gab. That way it'll repeat showing it to let us know that we got our money. Okay, we get our money, 100 coins has been collected, and it shows it again. Great. Let's take a look at some of the suggestions that people have made. Werewolf has hit us with a huge story. You can see in the last episode if you want to see the massive story he put in. He suggested a hunger and a gathering food system. Great ideas. Kevin Scott has left a few more comments saying we should show resources in the GUI when we enter town. We should implement a weather system. Maybe we'll do something like that. Sheepy is Sleepy recommended we add AI mayors or towns, like competing towns. Not a bad idea. Makura Art chimes in and says that we should add a beached area to start us off and where we can salvage the ship that we crashed on. I love this idea. Probably add something like that on an exploration map. Also suggested that we add a bait system to lower the chance of getting attacked if we implement the system to where our towns get attacked, which is referring to Marcus's comment about using enemies attacking your facilities to counteract the AFKing issue. This is a great idea. So we might do something like your mines will get attacked and it's the player's job to intercept marauding orcs or something that are going from one mine to another mine, to your lumber mill, to your refineries, to your facility. That will be the battle system, fending off people trying to destroy your stuff. And if you just AFK, eventually they're going to destroy all your things. You'll have to pay to rebuild them. I really like that idea. We're probably going to do something like that. So there will be some small battle system put into the game. Anonymous request we do a reputation system. Mushri requests an adventurers guild with cat girls for hire. Of course Mushri does. Avisto requests an upgradable boat and ship with a fishing system so that we can start with a raft and then upgrade to like a sailboat and fish off the side of the boat. It was a pretty cool comment. Thank you everybody for all your comments and suggestions. I've updated the list. Please leave your comments below if you have any more suggestions. I'd love to hear what you think we should do with this game or ideas you have for it or things you would like to see in it. All right, let's jump into the project. This animation for collecting gold in town, I mean, we rushed the system into the game and I tried to do a lot of things really quickly. I wanted to showcase how you can take an existing pattern to make a new pattern and use that art to make new art. I didn't show you how to start from scratch or one way that you could go about starting from scratch to make your own animations. Let's talk about animations and let's make a a new custom animation replacing this kind of weird one. For this example, I'm going to be using a sprite. You could use GIMP or Photoshop or whatever you like to use, paint.net. There's plenty of resources. A sprite is amazing for its ability to set up keyframes and animate and export as a sprite sheet. What I'm going to do is set up a new 192 by 192. Now with animations in RPG Maker MV, let's take a look at one. I've got the Claw Special 1 loaded in Photoshop, and this is a 960 by 960 file. They can be as long as you want them to be on the y-axis, but it needs to be 960 pixels across the x-axis because it's looking for a set of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frames, and the frames are divided into 192 by 192 cells. So if you would like to do this in Photoshop or GIMP, a good starting point is just to create a new 960 by 960. This is going to give you plenty of extra frames. You might want to use the magic eraser or get rid of the background so you have a transparent background, and remember to save these as PNG files so it stores the alpha data. If you're using GIMP or Photoshop, you definitely want to set up your grids and slices. So if you hit Control and the quotation, you can turn on your grid. To change your grid in Photoshop, you'll go to Preferences, Guides, Grids, and Slices. So just change your grid lines to 192 pixels. Your subdivisions doesn't really matter. You can put 1. Now you've got all of your animation frames. This will be frame 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it reads it just like you would read the English language or many other languages from left to right and then top to bottom. You can zoom in and edit your animation just like that and start right here, go here, go here. Everyone should be able to create blank animations. I like how it is. I'm going to make a very bad animation using Photoshop, and then I'm also going to do it in a sprite. So let's make a new animation. On the first frame, I'm going to select a color. I'm going to put a circle down. On the next frame, I'm going to raise it up a little bit and put it there again. On third, on fourth, on fifth, on sixth, I'm going to have this. I'm also going to add some extra stuff like that. We'll keep this here. And I'll change the size. Do this one. And I'll jump to a white color maybe. And then we jump to the other side a little smaller. And start down here. Move this up. Now I've got 8 frames of a very bad animation. I'll save this as, I'll save it with my naming convention, !DG underscore, and then what I want to call it, .png. You can use your own naming convention. Now when I go into my animations, I can replace a pattern with my custom created one, and we get a different effect. We can even create a new one, so let's do that. We'll select our bad coin art that we just created. It will populate the list of animation down here. So what I'm going to do is right click, insert a new one. I'll double click it, and I'm just going to center it. So I double click it and I want to center it by just changing the X and the Y to 0. Now what I'm going to do is replicate the frame by right clicking and pressing copy. And I can go to the dashes and right click and paste. We can also press Control C and Control V. But I'm going to do this one frame at a time. We double click this. What I would like for it to do is to just raise up in a straight line. So instead of trying to align that manually, I'm just going to put in the numbers and let it do it. So I'm going to say go up 25 pixels. If we add to the Y, it's going to go down. So we're going to subtract 25 pixels. I'll click on 2, press Control C, click on the hyphens, press Control V. I'll double click here, repeat the same process in a similar pattern. We'll just take away another 25 pixels. Control C, Control V. Copy, paste. Now our animation looks like it's just moving straight up. This was just one frame. So let's go in and change the frames. I'll keep the first one the same, but I'll double click on the second one and change the pattern to 2. Since this is pattern 1, this is pattern 2, etc, etc, etc. If you decide to use a second image, the image will cap out at 100 frames, 100 patterns. If you use image 2, and sometimes you may be thinking, well, I want to use the one right here and I can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, so it'd be 14. Actually starts over at 100. So if you want to change a pattern from image 1 to image 2, you'll have to say pattern 101, whatever it starts at. We're only using one image, so it doesn't matter here. We've changed the pattern to 2 on this one. On the third, we're going to go in and change the pattern to 3. On the fourth, we're going to change the pattern to 4. On the fifth, we're going to change the pattern to 5. On the sixth, we're going to change the pattern to 6, so on. Now what I'm going to do is sort of make it glow a little bit by changing the blend mode. I'm going to change the blend mode in between each frame just to give it some sort of animation. So at first we have additive, then I have multiply, then I have normal, screen, multiply, normal, additive, normal at the end. Actually additive at the end, green again. Now it looks like it's flashing a little bit. We can make it look like it's spinning if we flip the image a little bit. Maybe, let's try it. The first 2 frames will keep it the same. The third frame, turn on mirror, keep it off, and then I'm going to turn turn on mirror on the 5th frame. On every odd number, I'm gonna mirror. It doesn't look like it's spinning to me, and I think that's because it has no shading. We can edit the image further. This is terrible artwork, by the way. We'll save this in the same spot, overriding the other bad coin, because this one is equally as bad. But then we hit OK, we save our game, we reload that database, and now it'll look different. It gives this sort of almost fake spinning effect. Obviously it still looks terrible. You see we created a custom animation here. And since we're playing a sound effect with the gab window, I'm not going to put a sound effect in here, but we could if we wanted to. Let's put a sound effect in here. Nice. I'm going to remove it because we're going to use this as the new town coin. Inside our common events, I'm going to select the Joe animation that we're using and change the animation to the bad coin effect. And we'll take a look at that in game. Hey, I would say it's much better. Kind of hard to see because it's very quick. Obviously, we can change the animation rate or we can add more frames. I'm all for adding more frames, but that gives you a general idea of how you can create custom sprite. That's a simple way that you can go about creating brand new animations from scratch, and you can see it doesn't require much art talent. Now, obviously, if you want it to look a lot better, it would require more art. Now, let's jump into A-Sprite and look at how we would do a similar thing with A-Sprite. I'm going to use 192 by 192 because I'm going to draw just one cell, and then I'm going to add frames and export all the frames as a sprite sheet. So it's a little bit different process. The same thing is going to be happening. Selecting one cell and drawing the one cell, adding a frame and drawing the next. With A-Sprite, you get the benefit of animating it inside the A-Sprite engine. So there's a little bit of bonus, and I would say probably better to do this with A-Sprite, but you can go any way you want. I'm going to select a palette. I think the Nintendo NES has a nice palette. I'll take that palette. I'm going to select the circle tool. I'm going to set up horizontal and vertical symmetry, and then I'm going to align a circle. There. Now we have somewhat of a straight circle. The great thing about A-Sprite is the symmetry alignments that makes it a little bit easier to draw things. With A-Sprite, one thing I want to point out, when we use the fill tool, it's missing some of the spots that's kind of hard to reach. We can press Control +mark to zoom in, or we can uncheck contiguous and it'll fill in every color that is that color. So I selected a transparent color, so it filled in everything that's transparent, and that's fine. Well, that's going to save us from clicking all the little tiny spots inside the letters or whatever. We can uncheck that, and then we can go to down here where we have mask. If you don't have mask, you go down here, change your color to mask. That's means transparent. So we right click the outside and we have our coin right there. Use our selection marquee tool, bring it down to the bottom. I'm going to click on the bottom here and press Alt N. That'll add a new frame. I'm going to raise this up a little bit. I'll do the same thing. Raise it up a little bit. The same thing. Raise it up a little bit. Selecting on a number, hitting Alt N for a new frame and raising this up. Actually, I don't even need to select the number. Now with A-Sprite, we can press the play animation and it shows the animation. If at some point it doesn't look right, we can clearly see it before we have to go through the painstaking process of putting it into the game, looking at it, and taking back out. What I'm going to do with this coin is have it rotate a little bit. So on the first frame, I guess I need to decide how many frames I'm going to have. 12 will work fine. On the first frame, I'm going to keep it straight. Second frame, I'm going to select it and rotate it a little bit. On the third frame, I'm going to rotate it a little bit. So I'm going to use the circle marquee tool. On the second frame, I'm going to rotate that. Third frame, rotate it some more. So there we have another terrible animation, except this time I'm using a sprite instead of Photoshop. We need to export this in a file format that the engine can read, a resolution that it can read. We're going to export a sprite sheet, and we will say by rows, and we need 5 columns. We don't want any padding or trim. That's going to give us 960 by 576. Say visible layers, all frames. We need to select the file name. We will call it, that should work. We'll export that. Now it gave us our animation sheet. Paste this into our animations folder. For the sake of hilarity, let's copy the bad coin effect and replace the image with the one we made in Sprite. I did find a little bug there. If you have 2 dots on the file extension, it won't read it. So like if it's something .png, it won't read, but if it's something .png, it'll still read. This is our Photoshop one, and this is our Sprite one. I think we should increase the size of the coin maybe. I don't know. Let's see how it looks in game first. Once again, it's very quick. Let's change our animation rate to 5. Nice. Let's keep our animation rate at 4, default for now. If I start making animations with like 30 plus frames, we'll probably change it to 3 to make it run faster. I do want to change the name. This is bad Sprite coin. Also not opposed to increasing the size of it a little bit. It's easy to scale. We can actually just batch the entire thing. So let's batch it, select the scale, and make it 50% bigger. Cool. It's starting from below the town and going up, so I'm going to change the animation to head. That'll work. Cool. I also want to show icon balloon on the starting town when we gain money. So let's find what icon we want to use for money. I like this one, 832, so we'll use that for now. We also need to figure out what event we want to place it on. We'll go with event 4. And while we're spreading the effects from one event to the other, why not add some animation for when we receive coal or ore or a diamond? Since there's multiple outcomes, we can either have it show a different thing pop up by putting it in each of the conditions, or we can just add something to the label to show that we got something. Let's make a generic animation, add it to the redundant label. I'm gonna create a new 192, 192, and I'm just gonna mess around and see what happens. There we go. Very weird and no idea what it is, but we're gonna use it. Export it as a sprite sheet. 5 columns, give it a name. We're gonna call it DG_badMineHarvest.png. Export that. We have our sprite sheet. Paste this into our animations. We'll create a new one. Actually, let's take an existing pattern. I don't really like it. I'm gonna delete it and start over. I'm gonna take the heel 1, 2, change both of these images to the mine harvest, except this one's gonna have a little bit of a hue shift. Nice. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of the sound effect. I don't want that to play, and it needs to be scaled, but I don't know if we should batch the entire thing. Let's just try to batch it to 100. Let's batch it to 75. I'm gonna leave it like that. I think the beginning without batching it was better. I'll leave it like that for now. Call this bad ace mine harvest animation, and we'll go to our common events and we'll play an animation on the label here, new go animation, and we need to select the mine one, and we want the animation to be one we just created. No wait for completion at all. We don't want that. It'll lock us up. All right, let's go over here by the mine, see the animation, how awful and fantastic it is. Yeah, baby, got that. I think it's a little large still. It's a good thing we scaled it. It needs to be scaled quite a bit more. We will set this to center and batch it to 25%. And I'm going to manually edit and probably ruin. We don't need that frame, 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 or that frame. Cool. It's a lot smaller and pulled in quite a bit. Actually, don't hate it. I'll get rid of the last. Nope, the last frame I'm gonna keep. Okay, cool. Now let's look at this bad ace mining harvest. Awesome. So as you can tell, a lot of your time when making games is going to be spent on creating assets for those games. Even if you're not the greatest artist, you can come up with art that doesn't look like everybody else's art. You can create things that are awesome in their own way, and you should. There was 70 minutes of creating art assets and updating everybody on the project. We're out of time for today. Obviously, a large majority of the time that you're going to be spending on your project is going to be creating assets and art for your game to not look like everybody else's game. That's going to do it for this episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy this episode, please give it a thumbs up, like, favorite, share, subscribe to the channel if you're new here. I'd really appreciate that sub. Obviously, a lot of the time that we spend on our project is going to be creating new assets, and I like to tackle different ways of creating new assets, no matter what application you're using, Sprite, Photoshop, GIMP, Paint.net. There's a ton of free resources out there, but whatever methods you use, try to distinguish yourself by making art that looks different from other people's art. Even if you think that it doesn't look good, it will at least look different, and different is good in its own right. So don't be discouraged about creating your own art assets. You really need to if you want to be in game dev. If you want to have something that doesn't look like everybody else's project, you really need to create a lot of your own art assets, and a large majority of your time will be spent doing that, as we've illustrated in this 72-minute video. It'll be edited down. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me with this 2018 Let's Make a Game or Natural Explorers. This is a fun concept. I'm having fun with it, creating a lot of custom stuff, even though it's a little weird looking sometimes. We're going to continue to refine what we put into the game, the systems we put into the games. We're going to take them out and put in new ones. Yanfly released a new plugin. You should check that out. I'll put a link to that in the description. We might be using something like that. It is relevant and the timing's beautiful on it. Please give the video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. It lets me know that you guys want to see more content like this. Put your comments below if you have any ideas, suggestions, things you would like to see in this project. I would love to add your ideas to this project as a whole. Please subscribe to the channel. If you would like to support what I do, I have a patreon.com/driftwood gaming page that you can hit up to support monetarily. Please continue to support me on patreon.com/driftwood gaming if you would like to show your support. If you want to support the channel but you don't have any money to throw at me, that's perfectly fine. Come hang out on the Discord. I'd love to see you. Chat with us. I'd love to see you in the Discord. There's a link in the description below for that. Chat with us. We're friendly. We like to talk. There's a couple trolls. We've got ninja assassin mods. Don't worry about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to smash that like button. Smash the smash button. We'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.